You are live on 98.9 Northwest FM. This is the Tuesday Review, and I'm Nathan, joined by James. What's something's made you happy this week, James? I suspect we probably have a similar answer.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about your answer, but I've actually got two things, which is surprising because usually I have none because we live in a never-ending hellscape. One thing is, it was my birthday last week.
Oh, yes. So happy birthday to James.
Thank you. Had dinner with the fam, so that was nice. Not dinner, we had lunch with the fam. And on the weekend, I saw Strange Days at the Astor Cinema. So first time seeing it on the big screen was amazing. Dream come true. For a movie I love so much that we've talked about, has like a very cult kind of underseen quality and, never comes, it's not even released properly in most places. To have a screening was a big deal, so I rushed out and saw it, and I really enjoyed it. It made me really happy. It was really awesome. Just an awesome experience.
Great movie. I wish I could have gone. I was too busy and I was sick. So,
yeah.
I mean, things just happen and you can't get everywhere. What's made me happy? I guess just generally election results made me happy. It's no secret to listeners, our leanings in the studio here.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, I would have preferred, like a bigger Greens result or a bigger Socialist result, but as long as Dutton is as far away from politics and everyone else as possible, that's only a good thing.
Yeah, the whole Trumpification of the Liberal Party ended up being their downfall, they reckon.
Yeah, which
is a good sign for this country, at least.
Yes.
The rejection of kind of make Australia great again rhetoric.
Yeah.
Which is good.
I'm just hoping that, that because a big problem is like the Liberal Party, they tried to go like full like MAGA, like alt-right, and that didn't work for them. So now they're just going to try to go more centrist again. And then hopefully the next election or whatever, people won't be fooled by that. The Liberal Party is still the awful party they've always been.
I think
will probably always be.
One thing that they talked about this election showed that the Liberal Party, especially in the cities, aren't appealing to their former base anymore. Their former base is going teal.
Yeah.
And so the Liberal Party actually they have to change because the kids of today, people our age and younger, the aspirations that the Liberal Party present are harder for people to get, right? So even if you have that I've got mine, get your own mentality, people aren't getting there to begin with, so they're not going to vote for Liberal Party. So it's kind of, there's that whole thing where the party needs to realign itself.
I think it's also, even though Labor won the majority, historic, huge victory, it was also a big sort of turnout for smaller parties. The first, Greens got the most first preference votes I think they'd ever gotten. A lot of smaller parties got more votes than they did last election. So I think it's just a sign of our preferential voting sort of working, and hopefully will continue to push Labor when they're in power to actually do the right thing and not just play the centre like they have been doing for the last 30 years and just sort of trying to keep it safe. So
let's hope.
Yeah, hopefully that this means that even though they have the majority and might think that means they can do whatever they want, hopefully them seeing that...
I mean, it goes both ways here, because now they could also just take the opportunity to go big. They have the numbers. Now they can actually try and
but
do real
are they
things.
Actually going to try and do big things? Because
I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
Don't
we'll
think
see.
they... But that's why I think having the smaller parties sort of do well... it sort of
it gives them some
pressure.
Yeah,
it's
they can't just take it for granted.
I'm also worried because, maybe a lot of Liberal voters, hated Dutton so much that they voted Labor this time. So if the Liberal Party just gets some other idiot to run their party, then next election all those Liberal voters will go back and we'll be back to square one. It's just, I think the biggest thing is we need to educate people on how our preferential voting system works, because most people don't really understand that.
I think a lot of people also just don't give a shit. and that's part of it
too. Yeah, and we used to do those Saturday episodes where we talked more about this because
like multiple people we know will just vote for the first person that gives them a pamphlet.
Yeah, or donkey vote or whatever. And we talked about it before where it's designed that way where, you know, we're so overworked and underpaid and tired and we're looking after the kids and going to work and washing the dishes and making dinner. That's like, we don't have time to really worry about, you know, or we don't have time to research what every
people don't watch the
party's
news.
about.
They don't realize what's happening in their community.
Or if they do watch the news or read the newspaper, it's all controlled by right-wing sort of psychos. So all the news they're getting is right-wing propaganda. So yeah, I mean, we won't go on about all night because we definitely could. But yeah, it's just, I guess, all things considered, pretty good result. Because, you know, there was a point there where we were a bit worried we were going to go down a really, really dark path. Because if Dutton got in, I think Australia would never recover. Just like America looks like it's going to be...
I mean, you don't want a $600 billion 30-year nuclear power station?
Oh, yeah.
Burning all the coal in the meantime?
Oh, yeah, like that was...
Like that was ever going to happen.
Yeah.
Even if you got into power, like it would never happen.
Idiot.
Anyway, moving on, we are a movie show.
Yeah.
Sometimes. I guess I'll start off with what I've been watching lately. The new Final Destination film is coming out soon, so I've been catching up. This is an easy one for people to watch. You can watch them all within a week very easily because they're all
5 movies.
5 movies, but they're all like 90 minutes. Some one of them is 8. The worst one is like 75 or 80 minutes.
Oh yeah,
better.
Thank God it's shorter because it's so bad.
But I liked them overall. I think none of them really do anything different. There's never really any meaningful lore explored.
Yeah, that's. I remember, you know, Callum saw them. And we talked about it a bit, and then I watched them last Halloween, sort of Spooktober, and we talked about it again. Now you've caught up for the new movie, and so yeah, we talked about. It's like they introduce a couple of things in the first couple of movies, but nothing really big, and then they just kind of don't really ever revisit what any of like the force behind this is, or and that, you know, not that they have to have full on explain it, but
no, but it ends up turning it into what essentially is an anthology series where it just follows the same theme with a different cast of characters.
Yeah.
And look, they're not all made equal. I liked the first two probably the most.
Yeah, first two are the best ones.
Obviously the first one has Sean William Scott, automatic minimum 3-star.
Yeah.
Because I love Sean William Scott, but also it's not a bad movie, and it doesn't... This is pre-CG, or mostly pre-CG.
Well, yeah, it's around...
So there's a lot of practical.
Yeah, I mean, it was early 2000s, so they were using CG, but it wasn't full...
Yeah, so a lot of it still looks quite good, because there's a lot of practical there, which I liked.
And there's, you know, creative kills and...
And the second one, probably my favourite.
Second one has the best kills, all the most memorable...
Like, the whole sequence at the start, the first, 20 minutes we're on the freeway, I thought that whole section was amazing.
Yeah.
Even just the practicality of it. You know, there are real cars on the road, there's real stuff happening.
The motorbike and everything's crashing and catching on fire. Yeah.
I just appreciated all the stunts and the practical aspects of number 2.
Yeah.
And then, my
number 2
isn't loading.
Yeah, number 2 has all the best... kills, has the logs, has the elevator, has the wire that goes through the guy, like...
Yeah, 2 is probably my favourite overall. 3, a lot of people like it. I'm hot and cold on it.
I think a lot of people...
I didn't appreciate the whole carnival shtick. I didn't like it. That's just me. I did appreciate the clues left in the photos, though.
Yeah, that was cool.
And I did like the sunbed scene.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, but no, I think also Mary Elizabeth Winstead is just such a good main star that you're just like. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't really add anything to the lore or anything, but it's just like a fun, competent movie. It's not as good as the first two, but it's not awful either. And
then boy, does it drop.
Oh boy.
So the Final Destination in 2009, because it was right about that era where they're like, we're not going to call it number 4. It's like The Fast and the Furious.
Yeah,
now it's the Final Destination.
Yeah, but it was also supposed to be the final one. So it was like the Final Destination instead of just Final Destination 4, which is stupid because if you got a horror movie franchise, you want to keep them going.
And this one was in 3D, I believe, and it doesn't hold up.
It is awful.
This movie is shit in every conceivable way.
It's so bad. The CG, even for the time, the CG is awful.
The CG is awful. There's some weird kind of racist stuff in it.
It's so weird.
There's like a racist guy, and they just...
Yeah,
it's just for some. Is it played for laughs?
I don't know.
It doesn't need to be in the movie.
Yeah,
like you just remove that character altogether.
Yeah, and just the whole like, there's no real build up to the kills, and then when they do happen, they really look awful.
Which is the one with the dental kill where they're like in the? Is that number 3?
It's
2 or 3.
2, 3, yeah, 2 or 3 maybe.
That actually was a highlight because that's very scary because it looks like they're actually doing the work on the kid.
Yeah.
And as someone, no one likes the dentist. I'm not afraid of the dentist, but it's not my favorite activity.
I think what's the one with the
that was
eye,
impressive.
the laser eye surgery?
Yeah, I think it was probably the same movie. That was good.
That might have been the teeth might have been the second one. The laser eye might have been the third one. I can't remember exactly.
Anyway, they're always very impressive because no one likes.
Yeah.
Kind of like
I mean, I've always wanted to get laser eye surgery, but it terrifies me, and seeing that movie does not help.
But yeah, like that was really, really well done. I found some of it was really well done, but the Final Destination, I hated it.
Awful.
Irredeemable. Abysmal. It's beyond redemption. Just don't watch it.
No.
Just skip it.
Yeah.
Luckily, as we said, it's only like 80 minutes.
Yeah.
So, oh well.
It's a merciful.
It's a merciful, merciful relief. But I enjoyed the Final Destination 5 a lot more.
Yeah, 5. I was watching. When I was watching it, I was like, this isn't really that good. But the end was like, holy crap. I'm like, I can't believe they did that.
I guess it's been long enough. We can spoil the ending.
No, don't spoil it because
no spoilers.
I hadn't seen the movies until recently, and so
I wasn't paying attention, but it caught me off guard at the end.
Yeah,
I had to like pause it when there's like a little, we'll call it a little visual reveal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, what? And I rewound it. I'm like, wait, I'm reading it. I'm like, yeah, okay, I see where he's going.
Yeah, and if you go back throughout the movie, you're like, I see. You can sort of tell. But yeah, like honestly, I probably would have given it a 2 stars, but the ending, I was just like, automatic extra star. I was just like, I can't believe they did that. And
also, some of it was relatively well done for the time with how they managed to work the ending.
The angle. Yeah,
like I was very impressed.
Yeah, I was like, holy crap. And especially because the, number 4 was the final one, which is again stupid. And then they do another one after that. And like, I guess they didn't really need to, but they were like, here's the reason why, there's another one sort of thing.
And also my favorite character is in that movie specifically was probably Isaac Palmer, played by PJ Byrne.
Which one is he?
He's like the pervy guy who goes to the... I just found him really funny. Like, obviously, maybe not politically correct these days because he's just kind of like hitting on...
He's the acupuncture guy. Yeah. He's in The Boys, isn't he? That actor?
He's in tons of stuff.
Yeah.
So he's in
so many shows and movies.
So he is in, just a brief kind of, IMDb rattle off here. The Wolf, Babylon, A Complete Unknown, Green Book, Horrible Bosses, Bombshell... Rampage, Evan Almighty, Bruce Almighty, Dinner with the Schmucks, Spirited, Bewitched. So he's been in quite a lot of good films and bad films.
Yeah. But yeah, he's one of those character actors. If you saw him, you'd probably recognize him.
So I found him funny, which, obviously you got to take it.
Well, yeah.
I want to say take it from the time it was released, but it wasn't all that long ago.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like sometimes you watch these movies.
I mean, 2011, but still, we knew better then.
Yeah. But it is like when you think about it now. I mean, now it's getting a long time ago, which is scary. Yeah. But also, like, it's kind of crazy that it wasn't until like 10 years ago when people were starting to call out some of this weird stuff. Like the Me Too movement wasn't that long ago. The whole like Epstein and all that junk and. Harvey Weinstein and all that.
I'm not defending anything, but it must have been hard before that too, because like if you spoke out against Harvey, you lost your job, you blacklisted, and so it's like people knew it was wrong. People always know it's wrong, but it's not always that easy to call out. That's not an excuse.
Yeah, but
you should be calling it out.
But it's not even like that stuff. It's just like the really weird jokes and inappropriate like racism and stuff that.
It's not required.
Yeah.
Anyway, overall, I enjoyed the series.
Yeah.
Continue.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I think a lot of older movies that have problematic elements, you can still enjoy them.
Oh man!
While acknowledging.
Yes, to an extent. I rewatched 48 Hours recently.
Oh, I love that movie. I rewatched them after I saw you watch them.
I don't know how to feel because, like, he's just a dick to
he's awful. But then at the end, it's like they're kind of.
Yeah, but he's just like, oh, I didn't mean it. And I'm like, yeah, but you said some truly terrible things. But
that's what's so great about the scene and the way Eddie Murphy plays it. It's like he's like, I forgive you, but you still said it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that movie's also great because it's Eddie Murphy's first film, which is crazy when you think about it because he was like 22 or something. It's insane.
Yeah.
But also, especially for people our age, when you think of Eddie Murphy, you think of this guy who's always been there, who's always been mega famous, who's always been in movies. So going back and watching 48 Hours,
he's still magnetic in that movie.
Yeah, it's like this guy is a star and will always be a star. But I think that's what's great about that movie is yes, it's like of its time and whatever, but yeah, he's like gives such a good performance that a later Eddie Murphy movie maybe would have leaned more into like
more
yuck funny,
more overtly comedic.
Yeah, whereas even though he's hilarious in 48 Hours,
it's not a straight comedy. It's a buddy cop action kind of film. I would say almost first and a comedy second. It balances it, but it's not a comedy.
Yeah, and it's like it's not the first buddy cop movie, but it's like one of the the OG like grandfathers of buddy cop movies. It's such a cool and like just it's one of those movies we always talk about that they don't make anymore, where it's like neon and like it's violent and there's swearing and nudity. And it's just like a crime kind of gritty, but also like funny and so good. Did you watch the second one?
No, I haven't watched that yet.
Second one's like sort of it's similar enough to where you're like, okay, they're doing the same thing, but there's a little bit different. But it's also just a bit more modern, so there's more action and stuff. But yeah, I love both movies so much. They're great.
I did like the standout scene for me is probably when they're in the cowboy bar.
Yeah, that's classic.
And that's so just good. Like even the tension.
Yeah.
And then when he turns it around and it's funny.
Yeah.
That's a great scene.
Oh my God. One of the best. So good.
But yeah, I don't know. Let us know how you think, audience.
Well, speaking
when movies don't particularly hold up well.
Since I mean those movies hold up well. It's just like I was saying, the problematic elements. The problem is when a movie's bad and it has problematic elements, or when the problematic elements like are the only thing in the movie. Like, but I guess since we brought it up, Callum and I were lucky enough to see a screening of the new restoration of Crocodile Dundee, which maybe we'll talk about when Callum's back.
But we're on the topic.
Yeah, but it's on the topic. So, yeah, this new restoration, it's called the Encore Cut. And it looked great and it sounded great. And Callum and I were the only people at the screening. So we got our own little private screening of Crocodile Dundee, which was pretty cool.
Look at us.
Yeah, it's a movie I've always loved since I was a kid, and it's still a great movie. And the restoration was great, but unfortunately, with this restoration, they decided to cut out some problematic elements. And again, like I was saying, you can acknowledge those problematic elements, but I think censoring them is wrong, and we've talked about this before. Whereas if you are going to re-release something, leave it as is. You can put warnings at the beginning. I was actually talking to Callum about this in the rating, like the M or PG or MA, and it says like smoking, violence, swearing. They could put
outdated stereotype.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, that would be fine with that. Well, I'd be fine with a big warning at the start of the movie.
Was it Disney that did it initially, or was it Warner Brothers?
I think it was Warner Brothers with the old Looney Tunes. Yeah.
This is a product of its time.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And they used to have like Whoopi Goldberg would come out at the start and say, obviously this is dated and whatever. So like they should do that. They shouldn't just remove parts of the movie or censor parts of the movie.
without spoiling anything for any listeners out there, also very related to what we're talking about now is the rehearsal season 2.
Oh my god.
That's something we're gonna have to bring this back up.
I mean, like, episode 3 aired yesterday or whatever it was. I was exhausted after it. I was like lying on the couch and I was like, I could not get up.
It is quite possibly the best show on television.
After watching the first season, we were like,
season 1 had almost a consistent kind of narrative, I guess, through after the first episode.
Well, the first few episodes, but then it branched off,
And then, but the season 2, I never know what I'm going to expect.
Yeah.
I think there's an overarching...
There's an
overarching thread and a theme of, like, human connection and Nathan's inability to form a meaningful connection, right? That was also in the first season. But the little side travels we get in this episode are just...
insane.
Evanescence. I'm not going to say anything else.
So good. Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about when it's the whole second season's done. But yeah, it's just after the first season, we're like, holy crap, this guy's insane. And
he's the straightest, driest comedian of all time. I don't know if he's telling the truth or bullshitting. And I can't be bothered to do the research on some of the stuff.
And it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You know,
it's probably true.
And that's the thing. It's like some of it's real, some of it's not. Obviously, he's playing a lot for laughs, but he's so deadpan, and the things he does is so insane.
And the things he's saying probably aren't actually incorrect. He's just maybe playing with context.
That's the other thing. And obviously, there is a element of, like sincerity to some of it. But then obviously the way they edit it or, and the voiceover and stuff, it makes it funnier. But yeah, it's just such an incredible show. We were trying to explain it to someone and we were just like, we can't explain it. You just have to watch it.
Friend of the show, Rafael, asked what it was. And I'm just like, look, I can tell you roughly what it's about. I can tell you the synopsis, but that's not what the show's about.
No, yeah. And you can say, it's cringy or it's awkward or whatever, but it just does not do it justice, It's just, you have to see it for yourself. If you can grit your teeth and bear it.
I will say, watch season 1 first because it's incredibly relevant to the second season, even if it doesn't seem like it's connected.
Yeah, it is. It is a sequel series. Like, it's not technically anthology, I guess.
Yeah, but... anyway, that also involves some stuff about censorship and, episodes maybe missing of Nathan For You on Paramount Plus.
And I think we've probably talked about this before, but it's, something that's important. Like these artworks that are being censored are not being censored for the right reasons. They're being censored because a big corporation like a Disney is afraid of any blowback and wants to maximize their profits, and so is just like, let's not offend anyone. So, and as soon as anyone tweets something about it, an episode gets taken down, and it's like, Twitter's not real. Why are you bowing to that pressure? And now when you have literal Nazis running these platforms,
I'd want to know, like, how much of the narrative how much of it with Paramount Plus specifically, I'm not going to spoil anything.
Yeah.
But how much of it is scripted narrative and how much of it is real? Because, I mean, we can't talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
It, but it would also be the most Nathan Fielder thing of all time if he did it on purpose and he took the episode down to make it almost. Is that too much?
I feel like that would be so insincere that it's like, obviously, like, I think it happened for real, and then he used that opportunity.
He's written around it. Yeah.
And I think that's what's great about the show. Is obviously, like, everything he does around it is fake, even the sort of some of the documentary elements. But I think the actual thing he's basing it off is something that happened.
His lawyers must be working hard.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Some of the copyright stuff, maybe you could argue in episode 2 that he's using in inappropriate ways.
Well, HBO is a big
they
company. They get away with they can get away with a lot.
And I guess you can argue artistic license.
Yeah,
anyway.
there's all sorts of nuance. But yeah, even though I understand like the sensitivities, and I and I want to support certain groups of people who have been treated poorly and are being treated poorly, especially in today's, media landscape, especially in American media landscape. But yeah, I'm against pretty much all forms of censorship. So it was disappointing that Crocodile Dundee had those cuts made, but it was still a great movie and a great experience, and I really enjoyed it.
Crocodile Dundee is a perfect movie to have. This is a product of its time.
Yeah, 100%.
Nothing in Crocodile, I haven't seen it in a long time, so forgive me, but nothing in it is also seems malicious.
Yeah, I think also if you
it's one of those things.
There are jokes where I was like, that's inappropriate, that's sexist, that's homophobic, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's about a guy who is very.
It's fish out of water.
Yeah, he's very of his specific place in the outback.
Yeah,
and him experiencing anything outside of that. Is strange to him.
But it's one of these where he's the joke.
Yeah, and he's never doing anything to offend someone, and he never does anything that's so malicious, that he's irredeemable. And a lot of it is played that he is kind of putting on an act, even though there's part of it where he's obviously a fish out of water and he doesn't get, certain things, especially in New York. But there's also a lot of moments, especially in the first part of the movie in the Outback, where it's like he's playing the character of Crocodile Dundee that the reporter thinks he is. But anyway, I could go on all night. It's a great movie. It's a shame it wasn't restored to its original version, but still a good time.
I reckon it's one of those films where we could have, on Twitter they have those film restoration nerds who actually source film reels and they clean them up, and
that's the thing.
It's kind of like a grey area, but we'll endorse it, right? For posterity's sake.
Yeah, and we were talking about this off air, with something like Star Wars, which has been butchered for its official releases, we have to rely on,
restorations of
people on the internet
reels
to restore it themselves, and that for a movie like Crocodile Dundee, I don't think there is a big community of people who are going to do that.
I mean, the film archivists and restoration hobbyists do it for
unless someone finds a full reel of the original cut that they can scan and restore and upload. So hopefully that happens.
Yeah, because I know there's a few people on YouTube that work with theaters and they source their own reels, they buy them. These are older films and they just rent them out and sell them or do whatever they do.
Yeah, but it's just
find Crocodile Dundee. Let's see
the
full cut.
Who's got a cut? Yeah, I want it.
Hit us up. Give us the film reel.
Yeah, 100%.
We'll make sure it happens.
Yeah.
All right. Look, we might go to a very quick break, and we'll be back with more right after these quick messages. You are back on the Tuesday Review Live on 98.9 Northwest FM. Yeah, so movie censorship, not a great time, even if, stuff's a bit outdated and of its time.
We can acknowledge these things and we should educate people about why they are not good or, why they happen and why they shouldn't continue to happen. But to remove them wholesale is, I don't think, the right thing to do.
No. Moving along. I watched an anime movie recently I hadn't seen called Suzume.
Yeah, I watched this on the plane actually, to or from
the
Europa. So
I really enjoyed this movie. It's been on my list for ages.
Yeah, me too.
I never got around to it.
Yeah,
but the movie, is it CG anime? I feel like there's elements of it.
It might be digitally, but it's
really well done.
Yeah, it's not that.
It doesn't have that weird Netflix cheap CG anime thing what they're doing now, and that's one of my biggest kind of issues with modern anime when they go the CG route. It doesn't look good.
It's like 2.5D,
and it never looks good. Look at the new Ghost in the Shell on Netflix. It looks ugly, and it happens to a lot of these animes. But this is the one I can say, I can point at it and say, I'm pretty sure it's CG anime, but it looks spectacular. It looks like anime, and then there's some effects, and you can be like, oh, okay, I think that's on like a 3D plane. But it looks like most of it looks like it could be hand drawn. It looks amazing.
Yeah, it's more 2D than it's not. Even if things were rendered with CG or
exactly. And I really appreciated that they put the effort in to make it look like a premium product when a lot of these CG kind of animes, they look a bit cheap.
Yeah.
And I understand that's the cost of doing business with these large kind of animation companies, and they're all getting paid peanuts in Korea or China, and all these kind of server farm anime artists are. I understand that. It's not easy. But the movie looked amazing.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the story too, for the most part. I feel like it got a little bit kind of samey in the middle, sort of just the chasing kind of part got a bit tiring. So essentially, it's about a girl, Suzume, who finds herself interrupting, I guess, the closing of a door between the realms of life and death. And she interrupts this kind of, I guess, sealing of a magical door, which would bring chaos into the world, causing like earthquakes and kind of other kind of cataclysmic events in Japan. And then, things happen and, one of the other main characters turns into a chair. And peak anime.
I'm just like, this is awesome. Usually he'd turn into an animal or something, but it's like, no, he just turns into a chair.
Yeah. From then it's kind of like she's, I guess, pulled into this mystery of, what happened to her as a young kid and these magical doors and kind of the mystery surrounding her life and the connection to these doors.
Yeah, and there's the whole like race against time. It's like we have to close the magic portal before the a chaotic magic world leaks into the real world or whatever,
and causes untold damage to modern day Japan.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. It had a lot of kind of neat little anime tropes like the secret society, that kind of the safeguarding humanity,
and it was the little cat.
Yeah, little cat god.
Yeah,
thing.
It's a god of mischief, but he's a little cat.
Yeah,
something like that.
It was very well done. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
It's a good time. Good movie.
Yeah. The only other thing I've got, I guess, is we'll call it two. I watched Lost Women of Highway 20, which is a documentary series from 2023 about the serial killing on Highway 20 in like Washington or one of the back parts of America. I can't remember exactly where it is, but it's like a state where you're going through it to get somewhere else.
Okay.
And there were ladies and girls that went missing between the late 1970s and the early 90s along this stretch of road. And it was kind of like an investigation on who could the killer be. I was riveting. Riveting, absolutely riveting. I think everyone should watch it. It was really fantastically well made because it almost has like Twin Peaks vibes about it because it's about a small town in the middle of nowhere and it's like all the kind of the dark secrets behind the happy kind of families and all those kinds of things, and it winds up really well.
Okay. There's so many of those Netflix like true crime documentaries, and I'm a I don't like saying I'm a fan of true crime because it sounds weird, but I do partake, but sometimes it's hard to remember what case I've read about or what case I've seen documentaries on. So for a lot of people who aren't into true crime, it can be weird to talk about in a way. But it's just like I can't remember if I've heard of this case or not. I'm pretty sure I have, but maybe I'll have to watch it. Yeah, how many episodes is it?
I like 3.
Okay, good. So I didn't stretch it out too much.
It's just like 3 episodes. It's on Max. I really liked it. Go watch it. The other one,
what's it called again?
The Lost Women of Highway 20.
Okay.
The other one I watched is Gone Girls: The Long Island Serial Killer. That's on Netflix. That's a good one too. I remember the Long Island serial killer when he got caught. It was made the news and but I think this one was good because you get the whole kind of the boring part, like the story, and like everyone knows all the story, right? He was in the news. You've probably seen a lot of it before, but it also tries to connect other issues and other cases to this one guy, and it does so fairly convincingly.
Okay.
Obviously, it's kind of all just coincidences and stuff like that, but I like when there's smoke, there's fire sometimes, especially with these kinds of guys. And, when they find like X amount of corpses in Y area that
Exactly.
the dude was known to dump bodies. I'm like, it's realistically, he probably did it.
Yeah, we were just talking before we turned the mics on about how there are so many serial killers who it's like, yeah, they have confirmed to kill 20 people, but possibly, you know, there are a lot more victims that we don't know about, you know.
Especially when, what's one of the big famous ones? What was it?
Ted Bundy.
Yeah, Bundy.
Mm.
When it's like they theorized that one of his early kills was when he was like a child.
Yeah, that's the other thing, yeah.
So I'm like, you don't know how far back.
Because, yeah, sometimes then they go, oh, you know, his first victim was it, but then, you know, it's like, well, was that his actual first kind of thing?
His sister or Bundy? It was like his sister or it was something like that on a construction site, and he would not talk about it.
Mm.
He just would not address it at all. It wasn't like, no, I didn't do it. He just refused to talk about it.
Yeah.
But they reckon that was probably his first, and he was like a kid.
Yeah.
And so probably the same with a lot of these guys. Who knows how many people they'd killed?
Exactly. And it's crazy when sometimes you're like, could be hundreds. And you're like, how is that even possible?
Man's got a
but
thirst.
you know, back in the 70s or whatever, it's like
no mobile phones, no.
Everyone was just hitchhiking, and no one gave a shit. And if a woman said anything, it was just like, oh, you're being hysterical. And then
that's a big part of the first one, Lost Girls on Highway 20, Lost Women on Highway 20. Yeah, Lost Women on Highway 20. That's a big part of it.
Yeah,
because it's a big road, a big freeway, Highway 20, and there's a lot of hitchhiking going on. A lot of people not believing women.
It's so infuriating. Like every true crime story, even more recent true crime, which is annoying that cops haven't learned. But it's just like, like someone will escape from a serial killer, be running down the street covered in blood, and they'll just be like, "Oh, you're overreacting," and the cops will just do nothing, and it's just like,
what's the other one? The Netflix did a show on him.
The cannibal guy.
Jeffrey Dahmer. Yeah, that happened with Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah,
like a victim escaped, and he's like, "Oh, silly victim," and they gave him back to Dahmer.
That was also because they were like, "Oh, it might be a gay thing. We don't want to get involved in this," and so it's just crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Have you got anything more pleasant to talk about, James?
Well, actually, I mean, this isn't more pleasant, but this is kind of connected. A little while ago, I watched a documentary called Om, The Cult at the End of the World. That's AUM, Om. And this is about... Do you remember the sarin gas attacks in Tokyo, in the subway, in the 90s?
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah, it was like a big, terrorist attack in this, on the subway system in Tokyo. This group released sarin gas, and it killed a bunch of people and injured hundreds. And it was actually like a cult that had orchestrated this and committed this. And I knew about that part of it, but I don't remember if I knew a lot more about, I knew about the cult and what, I knew a lot about it, but then I watched the documentary and I was like, oh my God, there's so much more to this. There was more victims before and after of, using different poisons, and there were all sorts of murders, and the way this cult gained more influence. It was a really interesting documentary that, I thought I knew a lot about it, but there was so much more that I wasn't aware of. So that's another thing, all these cults that, popped up in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And they were just getting away with all sorts of crazy stuff and infiltrating governments. And I mean, they still do kind of now. It's kind of crazy. But it was just really interesting. It's how could this happen? You look back on it and you're like, whoa, how did they get away with all? They were making their own sarin gas and they had their compound, a cult compound, and the leader, was this guy, and it was really interesting.
I think
interesting documentary.
You haven't seen. I talked about this last week with Alan, but you haven't seen Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frankie, have you?
No, I heard you talking about that.
That deals with a lot of cults and kind of evil kind of shit like that.
Because, I mean, she was a mummy vlogger,
a
YouTuber who's look at my perfect family, but then in reality, there was another, I don't remember the details, but there was a lady who had, cancer or whatever, and she was an Instagrammer, and she would be like, I can cure your your ailments or whatever. I can cure my cancer with like prayer or magical or whatever her thing was. I can't remember the details.
Voodoo,
yeah, and she could have garnered this following and this sort of cult of people, and then she was like visibly deteriorating after, each time she posted something. Like she was really like skeletal, and then she died, and her followers like continued on and like would carry her body around and be like, oh, don't worry, she's just gonna come back. Or I can't remember the detail.
That's creepy.
I can't remember. Yeah, it was just so fascinating. I think it's just, it's just this weird, it's like, I guess, it's like this, my mind is like wanting to understand, but also being unable to, because you can't put yourself in that kind of headspace.
Also
so strange.
I would say the people with those kinds of headspaces are also dangerous, and you probably wouldn't want to actually talk to them.
No.
I want to appreciate from afar.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, even like Ted Bundy or something. There's like such an awful person who shouldn't be talked about at all. But it's like, it's fascinating how he did things and got away with things, and anyway, true crime.
Yeah,
if you're into that. Also, I guess moving on to a different topic, I watched Havoc, which is the new Tom Hardy movie on Netflix.
He's a busy boy.
He's always doing something. He's always got something going on.
They're doing a new season of Taboo as well. Apparently, I need to watch that.
I've never watched that, but wasn't the last season years ago?
Yeah.
I guess since he's a busy boy, and they're
I think it was a case of they wanted to get the script right, so they just waited.
Yeah, I mean, if I think quality over quantity is always a good, especially with TV shows where they just sometimes churn it out. And
look, I don't think he would sign himself up to do something truly awful.
Like well, he was in all those Venom movies.
I mean, yeah, but that's his payday.
And he does seem like he's having fun in those.
Yeah. But that's his payday. That's his one for the studio, then one for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's good in the new gangster show on Paramount.
Oh yeah, the Guy Ritchie.
Yeah, the new Guy Ritchie one.
Yeah, we'll have to watch it. There's too many things.
I know. I forget what it's called. It's something
Is it Mobland?
Mobland or something vague and generic.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, Havoc.
Yeah, Havoc. So I was really excited for this because it's directed by Gareth Evans, who directed The Raid 1 and 2, which are some of the best action movies ever, and definitely some of the best in recent memory. He also did a movie on Netflix in 2018 called Apostle, which wasn't that good. But it was really interesting. It had some really cool elements. I think it's one of those movies where it didn't really quite, stick the landing. It didn't really quite all come together. But there were parts of it where I was like, oh, this is really, really cool and interesting. So this is his next, most recent movie. It was shot in like 2022 or something, or 2023. And I'd be waiting for it, and it just kept getting delayed, and they had to do reshoots, and Tom Hardy was busy, so they had to wait and all this stuff. And it's like, oh my God, is this ever going to come out kind of thing? And it finally came out on Netflix. And there were parts of it I really liked. Some of the fight scenes are really cool. If you're familiar with The Raid, like, that really frenetic sort of hand-to-hand sort of crazy violent. There's some of that. But this is more focused on gunplay, which disappointed some people, like it's less martial arts. But I think the gunplay was good. It was very John Woo-esque, which you don't see in a lot of movies anymore, and especially because most action movies now are just like superhero CGI movies. So, having just violent shootouts is always a good time, and, violent fight scenes. So I appreciated that. Tom Hardy's good. The cast is good. It has a really cool style. It's kind of like this neon, gritty kind of. It's like not in the real world, quote unquote. Like it's not.
It's a heightened reality.
Yes, exactly. So it's like it's not like fantastical, but it's also not super realistic or anything. There is an element of like this is a weird, gritty,
we'll say things that shouldn't ordinarily occur more often.
maybe not even that, but it's just like this kind of really dirty, almost like, you know, the Detroit in RoboCop, but without the science fiction element.
So it's
just
City.
this, it's just this really dirty neon colored city where there's all this crime, and, you know, it's a bit more colorful than, you know, and the bad guys are wearing these, you know, colorful masks, and it's just like there's a bit of heightened reality to it, which I thought was really cool. The story is nothing. It's just like Tom Hardy's a cop.
It's a vehicle to get from A to B.
Yeah, there's a drug deal going wrong, and he has to investigate, and he has to find this kid who's part of it, and then there's fighting, and it's not even worth, which wouldn't be the worst thing. It's not, you know, it's just like, it's just a skeleton to hold up like action scenes. But unfortunately, it's like, because it's not really compelling and the characters aren't compelling, and the action scenes, while I enjoyed most of them, they're not that great that I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So, you know, it didn't really justify it being so thin. I think the biggest sin, and this was probably because the whole movie was shot in Wales, even though it's set in like America. There's like, every time someone's driving, there's a car chase scene, or when someone's driving from just slowly from A to B, it's this really weird CG, like city and CG cars. It's bizarre.
Why?
I don't know.
Like, usually it hasn't been. It's not usually a problem in most movies. They just drive on the wrong side of the road. They shut the street down.
I was just like,
decorate.
Yeah, I was just like, you can still. I guess there's. I mean, I'm sure there are parts of Wales that you could dress up to look like a generic American city. It's not like they say this is LA or New York.
I'm not comparing the man to Stanley Kubrick, but he managed with
Full Metal Jacket was shot in England, and so was Eyes Wide Shut.
Wide Shut, like. He did it a lot.
Yeah, but it's also because it's like I said, it's this heightened reality. So it's not like it's this realistic American city. It's just like generic crime-ridden American city. So maybe it was because when they were shooting, there was still some lingering COVID restrictions. I don't know. Maybe it's just the budget. Maybe it was just because in Wales they couldn't find the right, I don't know, vistas. It was just bizarre. And it really drags the movie down. And again, like I said, because the plot is so thin and the characters are so thin, the action scenes, while fun, weren't enough for it to really, you know, be great movie. So, and, you know, just the ending was, you know, whatever. So it was disappointing, especially because it was something that was highly anticipated by a lot of fans, and if you've seen the Raid movies, those set the bar so high that I can understand, you know, people really hated it. But at the end of the day, I was like, I enjoyed it. Like, it was fun, I guess. Like, it had some cool, you know, violent action scenes. But yeah, it wasn't great. I'm hoping that Gareth Evans can move on to something better, and hopefully whatever he shoots next can have potentially a more just streamlined release sort of schedule, where it's just like he doesn't have to worry about shooting something and then waiting years and then doing like a whole bunch of reshoots, and then obviously there's all this CGI in it, which I don't understand why. So yeah, hopefully his next movie is better. But I mean, check it out if you got nothing to do on like a weekend. You put on Netflix. You want just a violent action movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's also kind of packed month for films too. So,
I mean,
don't get too comfortable, everyone.
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of what's coming out soon.
Yeah, we got Mission Impossible. Is that next week?
Yeah, next week is Mission Impossible and the new Final Destination. And then
other stuff comes.
End of the month is Bring Her Back, the new movie from the Talk to Me directors, which I'm really, really excited about.
Clown in a cornfield.
Yeah, which
pass.
No, I mean, you say pass, but you'll definitely 100% watch it because it's your kind of movies. But yeah, it's coming to Shudder, so we'll watch it then. Yeah, I mean, there's always stuff coming out. It's just where can you watch it? How much is it going to cost? How much do you have in your bank account kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, we did have something else planned because Nathan and Alan were talking last week about Until Dawn and Happy Death Day, and we were supposed to do a sort of continuation of that because Callum and I couldn't make it to that episode because we're watching Crocodile Dundee. And yeah, we're going to talk about some other time loop movies like Groundhog Day and Edge of Tomorrow, but Alan couldn't make it today either. So hopefully next week that'll be.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, we always talk about on the show, it's like best made plans, you know.
That's it.
Man plans, God laughs. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully we've
also got the Phoenician scheme. Don't forget about that.
Oh, is that this month?
What, the end of the month?
Okay.
But we'll have to go out of our way for that.
So excited.
Love us a bit of Wes.
Oh, man. Wes Anderson, hook it to my veins. I don't care.
I reckon we're about out of time, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Shout out to Matt Myrams.
Oh, yes. I hope you can come on the show soon, Matt.
Yeah, so he was planning to come on, but I couldn't make it. So hopefully we see him soon and he's feeling better.
Thanks for listening, everyone, especially you, Matt. Please like and share the Tuesday Review on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Newsmask, Blue Sky, Twitter, and Substack. All our socials are at Tuesday Review AU, but the Substack address is thetuesdayreview.substack.com. Also on YouTube, if I didn't mention YouTube. We've got other videos on the YouTube other than these episodes. Shenanigans at ConquestCon and all other kinds of stuff as well, interviews. Lots more coming there as we enter event season as well, I would imagine.
Some more conventions coming up that we're going to go to.
Please give us 5 stars wherever you listen. It helps bring attention to the podcast and hopefully new listeners. I'm on Letterboxd under Nathan B_90.
My handle is Channel Drifter.
Callum's is Callum Tuesday.
Yep.
And Alam's is Alam20.
Yep.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week. Adios, cousins.